You are now listening to Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, the voice for the people. Join Richie alongside co-host property damage attorney Hans Kennon as they bring light to the taboo world of big insurance companies, exposing their tactics and fighting for justice. Hear stories from contractors across the state. Contractor Talk, here to protect homeowners and uncover the truth.
All right, welcome to the show, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Every Monday night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., we are live on 94.9 FM, 950 on the AM dial. The Answer. You got a second shot at us as well as we go to streaming in a few days after we record here. And then we're also on our podcast. You want to check us out on YouTube, like us, subscribe us there. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. You'll be able to find us, like us there. On our website, you'll be able to get linked to everywhere from contractortalkpodcast.com. We are sponsored by the Restoration Association of Florida. I'll keep it going with all the websites. We are an association by contractors for contractors. Check us out online at raflorida.org. And if you're a service provider or contractor here locally or in the Florida state, in the state of Florida, then you can join our association with other service providers and put the consumer first and hear from us when laws have changed that affects the way that we contract here in the state of Florida, what to expect. And we like to have this radio show as a consumer radio show as well, so we can inform homeowners about what to expect, especially in today's ever-changing laws. Hans Kennon here with Kennon Law. He knows so much about this, has been a property attorney for years and years. He does other types of insurance disputes. But what's going on, Hans, and what's going on in our Florida legislature, man?
Oh, it's alphabet soup with all the numbers going on.
Really
947, the House bill, now has this phosphate issue that Senator...
Super exciting. I'm excited about the phosphates right now.
I was like, who knew? Who knew it had that much important? But to Senate President Ben Albritton, that's a big bill for him for whatever reason for his group. Yep. Attached to that is now the medical malpractice wrongful death statute.
It's the PIP?
Not PIP, but this one allows if you bring a wrongful death action, you do not have to be a child under the age of 25 to receive compensation, which has been that way because it's a statutory cause of action, not a common law cause of action, which goes back to the merry old boys in Britain. And then in addition to that is the attorney fee bill, which would allow under most circumstances for the insured to have his or her attorney's fees and costs paid by the insurer if they win.
All under House Bill 947 right now?
Yep. All
Holy
in 947. Now 832, the companion bill in the Senate.
I was going to say, where's the companion? We haven't seen anything close to it in the Senate.
But 832 just has the phosphates in it. It does not have the medical malpractice language or the attorney fee language in it. In order for that bill to pass both houses, the Senate has to accept the House's version.
Right. Well, actually, before here, I did see that the bill sponsor in the Senate for Senate Bill 832 plugged in the attorney fee portion. So I saw the amendment, and I saw that the amendment passed. So it did pass. Now, that doesn't mean that it passed the floor. So it has a read, right, that it goes to and it accepts or companions to a bill in the House, which the companion bill is 947, House Bill 947. That's the one that kind of hijacked the language from House Member Cassell with House Bill 1551. We were all excited about because as prevailing party attorney's fees. And we've been missing that.
We like to call that loser pays.
That's right. The
loser pays bill. There was some concern, I'm not sure if it was legitimate or not, but there was concern that the prior version of the statute did not allow the insurance companies to recover against insureds who went after them. Now that has been changed, and now it is now a loser pays statute, which would allow the prevailing party to recover their fees and costs. So hopefully that will pass and give us back, level the playing field, as I say, a little bit back to the benefit of the consumer.
Right. I mean, and we can maybe say it in a couple different ways. I like to explain it like this. It makes it nice and simple. If you had a hailstorm, windstorm, and you need $10,000 to replace your roof, and the insurer offers you zero or very little, and you have to litigate it for 2 years, you need every single penny of that $10,000, or sometimes even more. The prices of supplies today and workmanship has gone through the roof. could imagine. But anyways, at the end of that, you need every single penny to be able to put back to pre-loss condition. And so with that, you're going to be, or with that, how would you be able to look your consumer in the eye and be like, hey, man, I'm so sorry, but we did get you. Good news, bad news is we got you the full $10,000, but bad news is I have to pay my attorney's fees, my expert fees, any costs and those types of things straight before, right off the top, before I give you any compensation for your indemnity.
Well, it's a very hard conversation to have. I've been doing this for 30 years, and for the last 28 years, I said exactly that to my clients. Don't worry about my fees, my costs, my time. That'll be covered by the insurance company. And now all of a sudden, for the last 2 years, I'm going, well, the governor decided that you are on equal financial footing as Allstate or State Farm. Apparently have all the same money and resources they do, because somehow it was unfair to the insurer that it would have to defend itself when it makes the wrong or incorrect decision. But luckily, again, with this statute, hopefully coming back, we only have till Friday, actually. Yeah, it is Friday.
Right. May 2nd, right?
May 2nd, yeah.
Right before Star Wars Day.
True. I mean, I don't know if there's any connection to any of those things, but it's always
well,
good to know.
Well, if the stars do align, then it will surely be Star Wars Day, and May the 4th be with you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So hopefully we'll see what happens. We have a few days left, but everything is in place. It's just an issue for the Senate to now, as they would say, pick up the bill, add perhaps that other amendment. Maybe the Med-Mal one gets horse traded out. You never know. But that's where we are now.
It's heated right now, and where there was a bill that already went through all of the committees in the Senate. It was a very important committee-sponsored bill, which is important to know that if it's committee-sponsored, that means that there's a lot of horsepower behind it, and that it is highly represented, and it has a high chance of making it the distance. Having that House companion is very, very important, and that they agree, both the House and the Senate. So I imagine the horse trading that's going on right now, the House saying, listen, whatever your most important Senate bill is this year, we will squash that and make it a little bug that it is, or however Mr. Wonderful says it. And so that is that's exactly what's happening right now. What's going to survive? What has the juice, right? And I know that Danny Perez, the House Speaker, is very energized to get the attorney's fees pushed through. They've been holding all these committees and holding the executives of insurance companies to the fire as they bring them up to depose these folks, and they talk about all of the facts and findings that they've been finding out about how they're overpaying their subsidiaries. But it goes even further, committing fraud to where they were changing the estimates of what they call the IAs, the independent adjusters. They're supposed to be independent. They get hired by the same insurance company. And they were turning in. Several of the IAs back in 2022 came up to the Florida legislature and stated in front of everybody, says, I am under oath. I understand this. I have evidence right now that the insurance companies changed my estimates from that hurricane. And they were talking about Hurricane Ian that just happened a few months before all these special sessions. So it happened in September 28th. 2022 special sessions occurred starting November and then went into December, and already they were changing the landscape of our laws by starting to remove what we have as consumers to be able to fight back. And that would be to be able to, like you said, be able to stand toe-to-toe with the insurance companies who have undoubtedly unlimited funds to be able to defend these lawsuits. So you have to have a lawyer that can step up to them. And all right. And so let me first introduce our guest. We have Patrick Carr with Blue Collar Media. What's going on, Patrick?
It's great to be back with you all. I'll tell you what, it's been a while.
It has been.
It's nice to see you both. And Richie, obviously, I owe a lot to you in starting Blue Collar Media Group, giving me the opportunity, the office space to be able to grow my team. So I owe a lot to you. And
of course.
Hans, of course, to you with the knowledge you've been able to provide me over the years with what's going on in the House and the Senate and how this process works. So very happy to be with you both.
Yeah, man, it's like bringing the crew back.
Love it.
So many shows that we've done together.
Absolutely.
We did a lot of shows.
A lot of Saturday afternoons there.
Oh, yeah.
Things got interesting.
A lot of 12 to 2. A lot of 12 to 2.
Yeah, I mean, we're on clean radio right now, but I would love to talk about the testing again, man. That was great.
Well, the junkometer was kind of a classic.
It was amazing.
Good times on Saturday afternoons, but very good to be with you all today. Thank you very much for having me, Richie.
Yeah, man. And then I know you were making some text messages beforehand, because we had some questions about now, because we talk a lot lot about the Florida legislature. We talk a lot about the laws that affect us as contractors and consumers. Because contractors are only as good as the consumer rights.
Yeah.
You know, and so plus we need to keep it fair. It's just the way it is. If somebody has that one time of need, once in a lifetime, one every 10 years, when somebody deals with a property insurance loss. And it's big time news, and we've seen the fake crisis out in the news. We saw Office of Insurance Regulation, who was under the CFO's office, who was the CFO, who then got $3.5 million to run again. And we're talking about Jimmy Petronas, where his only background is a fish restaurant ownership. That's it. That was handed down from his family. That's his only background, but yet he was running our state as the CFO, and we've been wanting to get rid of him for a long time because he's sponsored by the insurance companies and their lobby. They're basically doing his bidding. He's always talking about, oh, let's go after fraud, contractor fraud, this stuff, but he never looked at the insurance companies that presented the IAs came to them in the session and said, I have all this proof. They gave the proof. What did the Office of Insurance Regulation do? Nothing.
Buried it.
Nothing at all. They buried it, and they left it in quote-unquote draft mode until it was finally pulled out 2 years later, which is now it's exposed, right? So we need to clean up the Office of Insurance Regulation, and it starts by the top, and that's by the CFO.
Yes.
So, Patrick, so you were talking to somebody there just a little while ago, and we're going to have a special guest come on. If you'd like to go ahead and introduce him.
Yeah, so Frank is going to be on the show here, and Frank is running for that CFO position. As you know, Jimmy Petronas has moved on to, I believe it's Congress, the House. He had an election in his area.
Congress, right?
So he's moved on, and that seat right now, or that position, is vacant. Frank is somebody who is trying to bring more transparency back into the position, and trying to make sure that homeowners get a fair shot and that insurance companies don't have all the power. We want to swing the pendulum back the other way because, as we all know, unfortunately, insurance carriers are the ones that hold all the cards right now. And I think that Frank, being an expert in this area, is going to help bring it back, and that's why I'm supporting him right now. And happy to have him on the show. I think he's called in.
Now, will they give it the old college try?
Yeah, right.
Since we haven't said his last name yet, I figure we should probably do that.
College. That's it.
Yes.
Frank will go ahead and correct me, I'm
There you
sure.
go.
But yeah, so I'm really happy that, and I was introduced to him through Forrest Day, a guy who works in the roofing industry, and a man who right away when he said this guy's running, Patrick, you got to get a chance to know him. And I think he's going to be somebody that could be beneficial for the trades. Jimmy Petronas has not had any transparency, and I think that he's going to try to bring that back.
That's right. Hey, what's going on, Frank?
Hi, how are you?
Doing excellent, man. We can hear you loud and clear, brother. You can
I
turn
appreciate
yours.
it.
Cool. Well, I'm good. I'm in. Yeah, we're good.
All right, just adjusting past mic there. All right, well, very good, man. Yeah, if also we had questions right before. I think that's what sparked our interest in talking with you. One of the questions that we have now is if somebody vacates, if the CFO midterm vacates the seat, what happens? Are we going with no CFO for a while, or does it get appointed by the governor? Do they do a midterm election? What happens from here?
The governor will actually appoint someone as the interim CFO until the elections in 26.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
All right. So we have some time for you to then run. Are you already filling out paperwork? Have you already done the steps to be able to be set
Put
up
your
to
hat
run
in
for
the ring?
CFO?
Yes, actually, my name is listed on the Department of State as a candidate for CFO.
That's awesome.
I have already been doing private, intimate dinners with industry leaders, contractors, PAs, first-party attorneys, basically just to solidify the platform because I have a lot of ideas. I may not have all the answers, but bringing in these experts can help me come up with the ideas.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you can kind of hear it from our side because I've been to Tallahassee every year since 2014, and I hear the same thing. It's a different boogeyman for a reason why the premiums continue to rise every year. It's always they're, suggesting it's like, oh, it's the sinkhole stuff. And then it become the restoration contractors in 2014. And that's where the Restoration Association of Florida came in. That's not fair. They were hearing that these guys were coming in and strong-arming old ladies to sign this contract. And next thing you know, they were part of a lawsuit they didn't know about. And that's just fake news. And when you actually get all the documents and such, and Hans Kennon here is on the property damage board for the FJA that discusses these types of things, to the committee thereof, and where they discuss these things, and they have all this information, just like the BS where they said 9% of all the claims are in the Florida, but 79% of all the litigation. It's like, no, you didn't count. you didn't count all the pipe freezes. All you counted was wind, and you excluded New York, you excluded Texas, and you excluded Montana. I know they were making jokes. There were like 5 people live there. I think that one senator, Brandy's douchebag,
odds of something
like that.
freezing there is high.
Right. But it's just fake news after fake news, and just like the crisis was fake, right? I mean, Tower Hill admittedly never even filed for for an increase, and they got like a 50% increase, and it's like, hey, I thought, and I actually stated that in front of the committee, and I said, hey, it's weird that you guys are giving all these big increases, like over 15%, because I have yet to see a public hearing occur where it's over 15%. You bring it to the public, you explain why we're going to get an increase over 15%, but it never happened. They were giving it away like Oprah. You get an increase, Also, they can create a crisis. Right. And so then all of a sudden it's like, oh, these rates are going up everywhere, even if they didn't ask for it, so they can get the headlines. Why? So then they can change it. It started in January, and they knew that by the end of the year, they were starting a new session, and that would start, let's get these law changes. And that's exactly what DeSantis did. He pulled those special sessions. He couldn't do it on the last CFO, Chris, I forgot his last name, out of Tampa. Shoot, I forgot his last name. But that Speaker of the House held us tight, and then as soon as it changed guard in November, then December he went in and had 2 more special sessions, and that's what did it. And then we had House Bill 837 that finalized us all after that in the regular session. So, but like we need some governorship over the Office of Insurance Regulation. David Altmaier admittedly came right after me and says, oh yeah, we had all these hearings, but it went so fast that nobody actually saw them. Just like he didn't produce all the information that he had, and they left all of that in draft mode. That's just unacceptable. I have a friend that's in-house there in the Office of Insurance Regulation. They said for years they haven't done anything. They just have them not do anything, and so that's wrong. They're wronging the citizens of Florida. The 6.5 million HO3 policies that exist here, they need to have a governorship that is going to ensure that these insurance companies do the right thing and not overpay the subsidiaries like they're doing, crying poor mouth and getting these crazy increases. And we find out that after all of it's said and done, when they do an autopsy, it's not because of the contractors. It's not because of the attorneys. It's not because of the roofers, right? It's not because of any of that, right? It's poor management, leadership, and overpaying subsidiaries. And I mean, so many stories I've heard of executives owning a tree company. Pay them $25,000, $50,000 for one limb falling. It's like, overpay all these guys. That's their subsidiaries that they're doing, so they keep their profits below 5%. And we need somebody in this seat that's going to hold the OIR, the Office of Insurance Regulation's feet to the fire, and they do right by the citizens here in the state of Florida. So, but we do have about 7 minutes, so I'd love to hear from you, Frank, about what you're looking to do when you do come into office. If you're successful, how would you make changes as a CFO here in the state of Florida, keeping the consumer first?
Good question. From day one, there are some administrative things I can do from the very first day. Part of that is actually holding the insurance companies accountable. For instance, Florida statute says that if you request a copy of the policy, they have to provide a copy of the policy within 30 days. Well, if they don't provide it within 30 days, well, here's a fine, not to the carrier, but to the adjuster who violated the statute. Because, no one is holding them, period, accountable at all.
Right.
Another thing is open everything. Okay, so when insurance companies work a claim, they're like, we don't pay for this because it's company guidelines. Well, company guidelines is not part of the policy anywhere, so it's wrong. So either provide a copy of the policy, company guidelines, so it can be public knowledge, and put it in your policy, or you can't use it. But mostly it's going to be transparency. It's going to be 100% transparency, because every insurance company that operates in the state of Florida is beholden to Floridians. So Floridians should be able to see everything that's going on with insurance companies, because we all have to pay for it. Mm-hmm. All of us are paying for it.
Oh, we do.
Another thing would be, I will work with the legislators, because we have to bring more carriers into the state. More carriers into the state, more competition drives down prices. And we'll get rid of all these stupid things that hurt Floridians, such as the managed repair program. Florida statute 489-127 already says it's illegal to act as a contractor without a license, but yet insurance companies are acting as a general contractor every day without being held accountable for it.
Right.
Yes.
Amen. Amen. I mean, so many times that we've seen the damage that they've caused as a rebuild contractor or in our network. They tell me all the time. They say, "Man, how many times do I go after these managed care providers to clean up their work?" You know, to where the carrier still gets sued for bad workmanship because they provided that one, especially people's trust. I mean, they have it in their policy. They actually went through the legislature to get it to where that they can send out rapid response every time that there's a claim loss. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
And it's a conflict. It's a conflict because they own rapid response.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you got other carriers that piggyback on it. Look at Security First. Now they have a managed care program now. Olympus. You know, these other.
Well, so the Citizens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Citizens is now. Yeah.
I mean, man, people's trust was always interesting, just because they made no bones they owned it. Like, they didn't even try to hide it. Well, that's interesting, though. They won't start work until you pay your deductible. If you can't afford to pay it, they'll finance it for you. So your insurance company, through Rapid Response, will finance your deductible if you don't have it in order to get work started.
How kind of them.
Right.
I got a question for you, Frank. We talk often on the show about OIR, but we call it the Office of Insurance Advocacy around here. And it just seems like OIR is not doing their job. I mean, their job is to, in fact, regulate insurance companies and make sure that Floridians have a fair shake. What are your thoughts on OIR, and what do you plan on doing when you get into office?
I want to establish a board, and I want the board to act as the OIR. And so basically on the board you'll have 2 adjusters, 2 public adjusters, 2 laymen, and an attorney. And that, you know, because the Construction Industry Licensing Board does the same thing for construction. The Electrical Contractor Licensing Board does the same thing for electricians. Why is it that DFS is the only one that doesn't have a board who oversees and takes care of all the licenses?
Yeah.
And all the actual, you know, administrative punishments, all that stuff. So I want to establish a board and pull a lot of the responsibilities of OIR, put it into the board, and this way within DFS you have checks and balances. This way everyone can be held accountable from another party that's reviewing everything that everyone's doing.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. I mean, and it would be good to have this oversight. They've been able to do whatever they want to the fact of when we get some steam on some, let's say, policy that they put in. And like, for instance, the Restoration Association of Florida filed suit against the Office of Insurance Regulation for this binding arbitration stuff. And they were putting in policies and auto renewing folks with no knowledge, just automatically doing, and they're doing this with other language now, $5,000 sewer backup caps, and they're calling these things now limitations rather than exclusions, because they're not excluding it, but they're giving you $5,000. And
well, it's the same thing as it's the same thing as Citizens says. Either you use our preferred vendor for your interior damage, or it's capped at $10,000.
Right. How is that right or fair, especially when our Consumer Bill of Rights that's in statute in the state of Florida states that you have the right to choose your own contractor? And how they can do that and why statute doesn't supersede policy, to me, is just mind-blowing.
And why can the insurer waive the deductible?
Right. If we did, it's a penalty.
You go to jail.
Well, the reason why the insurer can waive the deductible is because the contract's between them and the insured.
Right. That's how they get around it.
You know,
right.
Yeah, that part, right. And I'm not mad I'm not mad at any insurer that waives the deductible by any means. You know, hey, if you guys want to waive the deductible for the insured, hey, have at it. But what I don't like is how a lot of policies do have language in it that violates the state law, but no one at DFS has the backbone to enforce the state law.
Right. Well, this is interesting stuff, Frank. If you don't mind holding out through the break, just a few minutes here. We're going to give some thanks to our sponsors. Take a break here with Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. We'll be right back. Right, and we're back live, 94.9 FM, 950 on the AM dial, The Answer, or here on Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. In a couple of days, you'll find us live on, or you'll find us on our podcast streaming on iTunes and on Spotify. Those are the main ones. We're on any streaming cycle that you can find. Also on our YouTube page, find us there on YouTube, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Like us, subscribe us there. You can then find the whole video rather than just the audio. It depends on how you like to listen. It doesn't matter. I like Spotify when you're driving around or earpod it and listen to your favorite episode. Everything is marked with who we have as a guest, what we're talking about that day. Today is a fantastic show. Not only do we have Patrick Carr with the Blue Collar Media Group, we have Hans Kennon with Kennon Law. That's all. One call. I don't know. I'll get it down there. Anyways. We're getting there. But in our guest today, Frank Collige, who's running or going to be running for in 2026 the seat for the now open seat in the CFO's office. We understand that there's going to be an interim appointed CFO until 2026, until the next election. At that point, the election for the CFO's office in the state of Florida will be up, and hopefully we have somebody that can actually be there, a backbone to protect the consumers here in the state of Florida. 6.5 million of us have HO3 policies, own a single-family residence, and has to have, especially if you have a mortgage, you have to have this coverage, right? And so we're forced to be able to choose from these 800-900 carriers that are here in the state of Florida. It actually is a lot of carriers. If you think about it, about 500 of those do property. Out of all those, you have property and auto and the whole bundle, the situation going on with Flo. But we look at what we have here in the state of Florida, and it's overseen by the Office of Insurance Regulation, ideally, right? And then there's subcommittees underneath that, right? Your Department of Financial Services, your Office of Insurance Regulation, all under this elected position. And for the past 6 years, we've had a fish restaurant owner that came in, knows nothing about anything in the state of Florida about what the consumers need, just became popular after his hometown got destroyed by Hurricane Michael. So I still don't get it. I'm scratching my head on how this douchebag came into office, but now they have an open seat, and we hope that we have somebody, and I say this, and I'll say it to I've said it several times. I had $20,000 plate of lunch sitting next to him one time when I'm trying to get some sense into him to actually meet the guy and speak with him, and it's like all empty promises, like any politician that you would think of. Oh yeah, that's cool. I'm here for your interests, and I understand this and all this other thing. And the next breath, he then, even though I'm not a public adjuster, but I work with several of those as a disaster response person, and he was saying after a storm, he literally called people on national television many times, public adjusters, locust, for showing up after a storm, a major event. God forbid they show up with cell phones and water and power and such, and try to help people call in a claim to get the claim started, because the later the claims are filed, the longer it takes. And so these folks come out to help, and they're like, oh, you're locust, and all this negative stuff on public adjusters, and that's just not fair. It's not right. Like I say to the Restoration Association of Florida, went after the Office of Insurance Regulation for putting in this binding arbitration stuff automatically on the next renewal with no notice of it, and no discount, and no understanding of it. So what happens during the lawsuit the next year, they put it in, they codify it in statute. They made a statute that said you can actually put this dispute resolution stuff in there as long as there's a signing and there's a discount. But then we started seeing an Office of Insurance Regulation allowing the OIR to put in policy stuff that like 1% matching. That's new. I didn't have that in my policy, and all of a sudden it renews, and boom, there it is. Yeah. Now, it's not an exclusion. It's the new word, right? It's the new thing, the new trend, limitation. Right? It's like, no, you're covered for it, but only a little bit, right?
Usually those letters say, congratulations.
Right. You have coverage. We're going to pay you out full amount of the coverage here.
I saw with Ken, they said exact thing. They're like, congratulations, we're extending coverage for your roof. And the guy was like, yay. And then the next part says, however, there's a roof schedule, and we owe you 25%. But I want to say one thing. I think we should use the term fishmonger, which is a well-known term for fish seller, or use as a slang of selling something undesirable. Oh. So I think fishmonger, I think a fish seller, I mean, potentially could be a credible thing, but fishmonger, I think, would not be. So.
All right, yeah.
I had a question for you, Frank. You there?
I am.
Hey, Frank, just had a quick question for you. When it comes to policy, as you see it right now in the state of Florida, is there anything that you think that we had all these special sessions, seems like at one after the other, that you saw codified in what we did that you would want to get rid of? That you say, hey, listen, I want to rewind the clock back on this. And for to benefit both contractors and, of course, to benefit Florida homeowners. Is there anything that you think, man, we got to get rid of this immediately on day one, or at least try to?
Yeah. I mean, one of them is mandatory arbitration, as you guys are touching on. What was it? It was 832 arbitration cases, and 100% citizens won.
Are you talking about DOA?
That's a DOA administrative hearing.
Right.
Yes.
So that's in the new citizens policies that just rolled out last year in January 1st of 24.
Right. Well, it's because that didn't exist. Literally, what they did was not allowed, and they weren't allowed. And the proposal for settlement, the device we talk about sometimes, which we get into, was not allowed by statute till they passed a law to allow certain things to occur that otherwise don't apply to anybody else but citizens. And it was literally like tucked in the back. It was like like on the back cover of whatever the bill was, adding that in.
Oh yeah. Well, see, the legislators have been pushing, trying to get rid of litigation. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the best tools that's out there for to get rid of litigation is appraisals. But
right.
Every time you turn around, policy after policy is starting to limit what you can do to appraisal. For instance, like State Farm says only they can demand appraisal.
Right.
Where it used to be either party could demand appraisal.
Right. And who
Appraisal
approves this policy language change? Right.
Department of Insurance.
Yeah. And State Farm's requirements, even if they agree to go to appraisal, which, as Frank correctly said, is a one-way street now. The list of things that you have to provide is it's Byzantine is the word I like to use. It's 9 or 10 lines of all different things or seats, all this documentation before it's even allowed to go, even if they elect it.
Yeah. And, and back to the DOA thing quickly, it's frustrating so many people because it's like they snuck it into policy renewals effective last year on January 1st, and now we're starting to see the effects of that. Somebody files a claim, and you get to the part of citizens where they slow walk the claim, and then as soon as the insured hires an attorney, because you remember, they were quoted in the paper as denying 77% of all the claims from Hurricane Milton and from Helene.
Yep.
Both of those two claims, 77% of all those claims, they denied or paid under deductible. So if one of those 77% of those folks, over 1 million policies, then filed a claim, and then they said they denied, and they hired a lawyer, somebody like Hans Kennon, he files a notice of intent to litigate, then during that 10-day time period, they can invoke the DOA, and they go to this mandatory arbitration where a judge who's never dealt with this before gets to hear both sides with no experts.
Well, what's really interesting is that it becomes a truncated litigation where what's interesting is when they demand DOA, if the insured doesn't want to do it, there's no way out of it unless you agree to either a form of judgment. But literally, even if you said, look, I'll withdraw the claim, we had counsel for citizens say, you can't stop the train. Once it starts, there's literally, other than failing to respond to the complaint, get a judgment and get a default judgment against you as an ALJ, an administrative law judge in Tallahassee.
So there's like nothing you can do. So they powered up as many, like years and years ago, 10 years ago, you couldn't even get a citizens policy unless you were told no by 3 different insurance companies. Yep. And then in the past 5 years, they just opened up their doors and said, we'll take everybody, because they were capped at 10% one year, 11%, and they were capped 15% during all the big hikes. We got that pushed through the year before those big, crazy fake hikes came through. So Citizens was the biggest game in there. They were cheapest game, and doors were wide open. So what they did, they ended up going up to like almost 1.4 million policies out of 6.5 million policies. They had the bigger share of all the policies. And then, of course, they had some law changes where they can make more money on takeout policies, right? You saw that sneak through. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, they're selling policies left and right. They brought it down to about 1 million policies. That's still a lot of policies they have with this crap language in there. And now this mandatory arbitration stuff that the homeowner doesn't even know about. They go and hire an attorney. Attorney does a 10-day demand letter. Next thing you know, they're stuck in this arbitration where there's 100% 90% rulings against the defendants. And guess what? Citizens is going after these defendants for fees and costs.
Exactly.
Can you believe that?
And that's what's crazy about it is because, again, the laws that were in place that would not apply in regular court were literally changed. And it even said, basically the language said, despite the fact that these rules wouldn't apply ever in this situation, because it's not a civil action for damages, we're going to allow you to use all these tools that no one else can use except for citizens if they demand this Division of Administrative Hearings to do this stuff.
I got a quick question, if it's okay. I know we got a couple minutes here.
Frank,
Frank, I had a question for you about the relationship between a CFO and the governor. I don't think it's any secret that Jimmy Petronas and Ron DeSantis have had a buddy-buddy relationship, but I'm curious what you believe the relationship should be between the office of the CFO and the governor if you were elected and when you're elected.
Okay, that it's a tricky one because the CFO is on the governor's cabinet. So the CFO should always maintain, what's the best way to put it? The CFO should always have the best interests of Floridians first and foremost, especially when dealing with insurance, because the CFO is not only in charge of insurance though. He's the state fire marshal as well. He's also oversees the funeral services in the state of Florida, and also he oversees the budget. So there's a lot of things that the CFO has to keep track of. But right now, the number one pain point among Floridians is insurance. So the CFO needs to be able to talk about insurance. And having a CFO that, unfortunately, we haven't had one, but having a CFO that is fluent in insurance is extremely important, especially at this juncture, because right now there's a war going on that people don't see, and it's between the insurance carriers and the population.
Which is why the board idea was so good.
Love the board idea.
Yeah, I do love that idea. We have 30 seconds left till the break. Quickly, how would you then? It's so much. We're going to pick this up on the next break for sure. So many things that we see holes in on our side, we would love to be able to see that could actually be talked about. And so we want to have more time with you. We're going to have some thanks to our sponsors here. We have here on Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, sponsored by Restoration Association of Florida, raflorida.org. Hang out through the break. We'll be right back. All right. We're back live, 94.9 FM and 950 on the AM dial. The Answer, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Having a good time here with our special guest, Frank Collige. He's running for the CFO's position here in the state of Florida when we're coming to the 2026 election. So we still have not heard who the appointee is, from my understanding. Is that right, Frank? Or do we have an appointee already lined up by the governor?
I think if give me 1 second. I believe it's actually right now the acting CFO is Susan Miller.
No idea who that is.
I don't know who she is either.
And I wanted to pick this back up right before the break. I was going to ask you because Pat who's on to something there when he was like, how's the relationship between the CFO and the governor? And thank you for explaining that about being on the cabinet and so many other different departments that you'd be overseeing as the CFO. Now, what is the relationship with the CFO's office and like the consumer advocate? It seems like that station has been left with the lights on, but nobody's home kind of thing. Years back, and Sharon Jones, when she was in play, she literally left her post because her hands were tied. There was no consumer advocacy going on. It's just how we can railroad the consumer over and over and over again. And how is that relationship with the consumer advocate, and is that even still a position today?
I think it's a position that's more of a in name only, but not actually doing anything.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a lot of divisions within DFS that kind of overlaps each other, and if you got to think that DFS is not that old. It's only, I off the top of my head, I think only 15 years old. Before that, it was multiple different organizations, and they kind of combined them all and made the Department of Financial Services and made the CFO overseeing the whole thing, which is kind of crazy because underneath the CFO, you have the insurance commissioner who is appointed by the board, by the governor's cabinet to hold that position. And so the insurance commissioner is the one who actually approves the licensing for new carriers coming into the state.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that has to be done is you have to get the insurance commissioner on board with what needs to be done, essentially. So one of the first things I will do is I will relieve the current insurance commissioner, and I will work with the cabinet to appoint someone into that position. Now the drawback to the insurance commissioner is if you look at the state regulations pertaining to who qualifies for the state insurance commissioner, they must hold a senior position within an insurance carrier. So there's obviously no bias there, right?
Really?
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
I had
that
no
was
idea.
a pre-qualifier there. Hurry up, Pat. You need to get a job at an insurance company.
I know, real quick. Let's
So
we're starting an insurance
one
company.
of the things I really want to advocate for is I want to make the insurance commissioner an elected position. Because right now, everyone who's listening, everyone who sees the CFO, no one until they hear me talk about the CFO, hear someone someone who is knowledgeable about what the CFO does, no one thinks about the CFO as the person who is overseeing insurance.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Because when you hear the CFO, you're like, okay, so you're a CFO, you just deal with money. Well, there's more to that for the Florida CFO. But if you see someone on the ballot that's insurance commissioner, now you have someone you can point to and say it's that guy.
Right.
That person
It's his
right
fault.
there is why my rates are up.
Right. Now, I have a question for you. Now, and I'm glad you brought that up on the rates. We haven't seen, and Hans and I talk about this all the time, the bills that come through, at no point do we ever see any two words together say rate reduction next to each other. Now, that is such a pain point for everybody in the state of Florida. And now the car insurance rates are climbing up, just like the same as property insurance has gone up over the past couple of years, and really haven't seen a stabilization. We've seen some, but it's still a steady rise. How quickly can that change, and what could be done to try to curb that?
Okay, so that will actually require a lot of work on the legislator side, because the way to lower the rate is to bring in more carriers. But you have to entice the carriers to come to the state. One of the ideas I have, and it is an uphill battle, I know this, but one of the ideas I have is when they made Florida citizens, they messed up. They made it an insurance carrier. What they should have done, it made Florida insurance reinsurance.
I knew you were going to say that.
wind
That's
claims.
the great idea right there. Yeah, and they made that stupid Flora crap and this Fora whatever. Then they gave $2 billion. I literally cried, and I was like, why don't you give it to citizens and make it reinsurance and give everybody of that at a much lower rate to create that competition. There's only 2 or 3 reinsurance providers, and guess what? 50% of every dollar that you pay into premiums goes out the door to reinsurance. Just so you know, that's the real killer of insurance premiums right now.
Oh, absolutely. Now you make Florida insurance, Florida citizens reinsurance. Get rid of it as insurance, right? It shouldn't be an insurance carrier. It should be reinsurance.
Absolutely.
If you make it reinsurance for wind claims, for instance, then insurance companies are going to be more enticed to come into Florida because they know they're not going to lose money on wind damage. Because essentially, Florida is telling all the carriers in the nation, come to Florida, we have your back on wind damage.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
what happens is if you can bring more carriers into the state, you have more competition. More competition drives down prices because now you got supply and demand.
Mm-hmm. And you have a Florida funded, which the state of Florida is very rich right now. We're talking about in the billions in surplus, not M, but B for billions in surplus right now. We can handle a few named storms right now if we wanted to, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so much so that they gave $2 billion for this program. The problem is they made it optional, and they said that if anybody participated, then they would have to give back their savings dollar per dollar back to the policyholders, which they're like, we have to get money back?
I think only one...
It was Heritage.
I think Heritage applied for it on the $2 billion, and their give back was like less than 1%. It was some crazy low number somehow. They took some of the money, but it was the only one. Basically, it was free money. All you got to do is give the people back what it would have cost you, and nobody wanted to do
right
that.
for
transparency.
Give money back to policyholder. Psh, we don't do that.
Exactly.
I just had one final question for Richie, if it's okay here for Frank.
Go for it.
Frank, I guess you'd say this. The reinsurance market has been unregulated. Reinsurance market, I should say, has been unregulated for a while. What do you do to bring the prices or to bring more transparency to the reinsurance market? Because I don't think that any homeowners know that most of their premium, or a good part of it, is going to reinsurance on the back end. And as Richie said, there's only 3 that are about like a Lloyd's of London or someone like that.
It's like
Truckers Exchange.
Right.
Swiss Re.
How do we get this? This thing needs to be regulated, in my opinion, Frank. We need to bring some transparency back to the reinsurance market. We haven't seen that. Can you tell me a little bit about what you might do to do that for Florida homeowners?
Well, the reinsurance is, for those who's listening that are not familiar with what reinsurance is, it's insurance for the insurance carrier.
Yeah. Right. For
So
named storms. Named storms specifically, they have 18 months to get reimbursed for an act of God. And it's like that's what all the insurance carriers are scared of, is these big these big hurricanes coming through and creating billions of dollars of damage. Now, if they do it right and they pay claims, they can actually get reimbursed. But I sit here at awe as they still deny 14 other carriers outside of Citizens also denied more than 50%. That was in an article of all of the claims filed by Milton and Helene. And so that's just disgusting. I mean, People's Trust was at 76% all the way down to, to Snake Farm, All Snake. They are not here for giving us the help and support that they should be in the state of Florida. And we need somebody to keep their foot on the gas pedal when it comes to keeping the insurance companies doing the right thing. This is just, if I was the CFO or if I was DFO, whichever, I would think that those numbers are insane. I would be embarrassed if I was the CFO and those numbers came out, said 15 carriers denied more than 50% of all the hurricane claims. And that's the time of need where people are like, this is why I have insurance, for those active gods that I didn't know was coming.
Well, one of the problems with that is, sorry, I will get back to the reinsurance topic in a moment. One of the reasons that is a problem is because insurance companies know that if they deny a claim, less than 2% of the population is going to challenge it.
Yep.
Sure.
And that 2% of the population is either going to hire a public adjuster or an attorney. And the insurance companies know that the ones who go right to an attorney are going to lose 20 to 33% of the claim because there's no attorney fees. So unfortunately, the one thing that when our legislators got rid of the attorney fee statute, the only thing that did, it didn't lower our premiums. All it did was give the insurance companies more backbone to mess with Floridians, knowing that nobody can do anything about it. And if you file a complaint with DFS, unfortunately, right now at DFS, you file an insurance complaint, and you can have all the evidence in the world. They're just going to ask the carrier, did you do this? And they go, no. And then they're like, carrier said they didn't do anything wrong, and they close it. They don't investigate the carrier. But the moment that a public adjuster, attorney, or a homeowner, or a contractor does anything that violates the law and the insurance company files a complaint, they are researching you, researching, talking to everyone you've ever talked to, because they're going to file a lawsuit. They're going to file against you, and they're going to try to put you in jail. But the system is not equal, and that's one of the problems. Is it is one-sided. It's only geared towards punishing Floridians and not holding anyone but Floridians accountable. It needs to be equal. It needs to hold both parties accountable equal.
It really does.
If you're the carrier, if you're the carrier and you commit fraud, or the carrier hires an engineer who commits fraud on behalf of the carrier, you need to be held to the same standard
They
as
should
if
be
it
held
was
accountable.
a homeowner committing fraud.
Absolutely. And I think that'll keep us feeling safe here in the state of Florida. And lastly, Frank, how are we going to stop the insurance companies from giving all this money and support? They gave Petronas $3.5 million to run. So that's going to be a hurdle that we'll have to overcome, somebody that's sponsored by the insurance lobby. But quickly,
Oh, absolutely.
how would they get a hold of you if they want to donate to your campaign? 20 seconds left.
Okay, you can visit frankforchange.com, and you can read up on me or donate on that website.
Love it. Frankforchange.com. I love it. Thank you for being a guest on our show. Patrick Carr, thank you so much.
Thanks, Frank.
Hans Kennon. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. See you.